With the NFL Scouting Combine wrapped up, it's time for a 7-round mock draft with some Combine standouts for the Tennessee Titans and some tidbits from the Combine on every single player. We're going to dive into all that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. Let's get it!
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, it's a mock draft Monday edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. I got a 7-round mock draft for you guys with some of the top Combine standouts from Combine Week. I'm going to have a specific note from the Combine, whether it be measurements or testing or something like that, with every single player that we choose. We have a new player at the top of the draft that we haven't really seen. We've heard a lot about meeting with the Titans or being an option for the Titans, but we haven't really seen a lot of mock drafts where this player gets selected to the Titans, so I'm excited to go over that. Before we get into it, do want to thank you guys once again for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content on all platforms all year long and always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed and stay subscribed to the Locked On Titans podcast. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about Jeffrey Simmons scrubbing the Titans from his social media. We're going to talk about a little bit of a rumor that connects the Titans to some quarterbacks at the top of the draft as well. So that's coming up tomorrow. But for today, a 7-round mock draft for the Titans, the number one pick. And I did this mock draft myself, all 7 rounds. So that's where it comes from me. And with my first pick, pick number 11 for the Tennessee Titans, select Peter Skoronski, the offensive lineman out of Northwestern. Now, I call him an offensive lineman because there is some debate in the scouting community as to whether Skoronski should be a guard or if he should play tackle like he played in college his entire career. That is a conversation that's happening. But either way, all I know is when the Tennessee Titans select Peter Skoronski, they're getting a starting level offensive lineman. Whether he can play tackle, whether he can play guard, whether they move him to guard, either way, the Titans are going to get a great offensive lineman. And to me, that's what's most important. That's more important than anything. And quite frankly, I think that there's a better chance that the Titans go after offensive tackles in free agency. So if the Titans go heavy at offensive tackle in free agency, you pick up a guy like Skoronski. If you need a tackle, he can kick out there. If you have tackles that you feel comfortable with, he can kick inside and maybe be an all-pro level guard. It would be like the Titans might be able to get their version of a Quentin Nelson. Not saying that Skoronski is going to be that good, but, I mean, he has potential to be a consistent all-pro guard on the interior. I still think that Skoronski can play tackle. And here's one tidbit for you guys from the NFL Combine on Peter Skoronski. His official Combine stats, and people were worried about how short he was. People were worried about the arm length. He measured in at 6'4", so he's not less than that. That's a good sign right there. He did have 32.25-inch arms, which everybody expected short arms. But, I mean, you look at guys like a Rashawn Slater, who went to Northwestern as well, 33-inch arms. That's not incredibly long. He's been very good in his early career with the Chargers. Liam Eckenberg has short arms, 32-inch. Jared Valdir had a very good career with shorter arms. And a guy in Indianapolis, and Braden Smith, who's one of the better right tackles in the NFL. He has less than 33-inch arms. So 32.25-inch arms for Skoronski, about what people expected. Again, some people may box him in and say that he needs to be a guard. Well, guess what the Titans need? A guard. The Titans need offensive linemen up and down the entire lineup. So if you get Skoronski in, I think you give him a shot to play offensive tackle. If that doesn't work for any reason, then you got yourself an all-pro guard right away. So I think that in this draft class is not a great draft class. You hear all the scouts say it, all the top pundits say this isn't a great draft, generally speaking. Well, I know that there are a handful of first-round quality players, and Peter Skoronski is one of those. So either way, if you leave with Skoronski, you are going to leave with a player who you know is an NFL caliber player that could start out of a draft class that isn't all that great. So that's important to me. Now, I will tell you that Paris Johnson Jr. was already gone in this mock draft. He went number 9 overall to Carolina, which I question the mock draft machine for that pick. But either way, he was gone. I had other options: Quentin Johnston, Lucas Van Ness, Devon Witherspoon, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Those were options on the table. And if you wanted to go with Jackson Smith and Jigba, if you wanted to go with Lucas Van Ness, I would understand that. I would understand that. But for me personally, the Titans need to shore up the offensive line. And it was pretty easy for me to pick Peter Skoronski because, again, this is not the best draft class of all time. It's one of the, I don't want to say worst, lesser draft classes of recent time in terms of talent overall. Now, I haven't gone through all 400 prospects, looked at the tape and everything to be able to tell you that. That's just what the most informed people in the industry are saying. So with that in mind, not only are you leaving your first pick in the first round at number 11 with a guy that you know is going to be a starter on your offensive line from day one, but you leave with a guy in a poor draft class who you know can be a good player for the next decade. I think that's big for your first pick. So if we're sticking, we're staying. No Paris Johnson Jr. available. I'm going with Peter Skoronski if he's available 100 out of 100 times there. That's what I'm going to do. So that was my selection with the Titans' first pick. I thought it was interesting. We got the arm length over 32, so not despicable in any way, although it may still put Skoronski in as a guard. I'm willing to let him play tackle, especially for the Titans, depending on what they do in free agency. But that's going to do it for our first pick in the 7th-round mock draft. We had 2 offensive weapons on day 2, and then had some really solid role players in the trenches on day 3. I'm going to get into all of that in just a moment. Before I do, want to tell you guys about the best tasting protein bars in the galaxy from our friends over at Built Bar. Look, when we first started advertising Built Bars, you had to go on Built.com to get them. That's the only place you could. They are so popular now that you can go down to your local Walmart or your local Sam's Club and pick up a box of Built Bars. They really are the best protein bars of all time because you get the best of both worlds with Built Bar. Look, it's a protein bar. It needs to be healthy. Built Bars are low calorie, low sugar, high protein, high fiber, but you get all the taste benefits of a candy bar. All the bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, 100% real chocolate. Great flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, coconut puff, cookies and cream. I mean, just there's something there for everybody. So go to Built.com, go down to your local Walmart, go down to your local Sam's Club. I would suggest picking up a 13-bar variety box. There's going to be something in there that is for everyone in your home. So make sure to go to Built Bar, Built.com, Sam's Club, Walmart. Get yourself the best tasting protein bars in the galaxy today. Titans fans, we are going to continue this Mock Draft Monday edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We just went through round 1 with pick number 11. I took Peter Skoronski, measured in at 32.25-inch arms, probably play some guard. I think he could still play tackle, but very interesting tidbit there on Skoronski. That was my pick at number 11. We're going to go into day 2 of this 7-round mock draft where I had some really nice offensive weapons to the Titans. Before we get into it, do want to thank you guys again for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen every day, Monday through Friday. Tennessee Titans content on all platforms all year long and always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed to the Locked On Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about some more buzz about the Titans trading up in the draft for a quarterback. We're also going to talk about Jeffrey Simmons scrubbing the Titans from his social media. I'm not going to lie. That's pretty concerning based on some past history that we all have experienced. But that's for tomorrow. Today, we continue the Locked On Titans Mock Draft Monday. And with pick number 41 Haven't been able to get this guy in a mock draft before. Very excited to see it. And after the performance he put on at the combine, I don't know if he'll be here this late. But hey, I'm going to take what's available to me. And at pick number 41, I took Darnell Washington, the tight end out of Georgia. Look, there was no Jalen Hyatt, was no Jordan Addison, was no Zay Flowers. You could have considered a Josh Downs, a Will McDonald, a Steve Avila, a DeJuan Jones, John Michael Schmitz. They were all options. But to me, Darnell Washington, I talk about the best of both worlds with Built Bars. You get the best of both worlds with Darnell Washington. You get all of the receiving ability that you want from a tight end, but you get blocking ability of an athletic lineman. There were some people joking over the weekend that Darnell Washington could add 30 pounds and be Jason Peters because of how athletic he is. I want him to stay at tight end. And look, in the Titans system, having a move tight end like Chigakonkwo, and then having that stationary inline blocking power tight end at number one, if you add Darnell Washington and Chigakonkwo together, I mean, that's a beautiful combination for the way the Titans want to play offense. Tim Kelly likes to use a lot of tight ends too. The Titans aren't just going to go to one tight end all the time, and you can't have Chigakonkwo be your only primary tight end. You just can't do it. He's not advanced enough as a blocker to do that right now. So you get a guy like Darnell Washington, who's the 6'7" monster dude, who, by the way, still has incredible athleticism. Check this out. Darnell Washington had a 4.08 short shuttle at 264 pounds. Only four tight ends or fullbacks have done that in the last 10 years, had a time that good. And all of those players were under 255 pounds. So this guy is running a 4.08 short shuttle at 264 pounds, which only four other people have done, and they're 10 pounds lighter than him. I mean, that's impressive. That's impressive. His short shuttle of 4.08 was the third best at the combine out of all positions. Wide receiver, all of them. I mean, that's pretty insane. All right, so you get Darnell Washington in. You add him to Chick. And look, I've been saying this for a while, and I'm going to continue to say it. While we focus on wide receiver so much, in the Titans offense, the way the Titans want to play offense, the tight end, getting a second tight end, I look at, you got Chigakonkwo, you got Treylon Burks. Getting a second tight end to pair with them is just as important as a second wide receiver to me. So you get a guy like Darnell Washington, and my Lord, that is such a great tight end pairing for the next decade. Unbelievable how perfect those guys fit together. So love to see that at pick number 41. Love to see his historic combine numbers. That's fantastic. Had to go with Darnell Washington there. At pick number 72, my guy, and you're going to hear his name. If he's available at 72, I'm getting him every single time. And it's Rashee Rice, wide receiver, SMU. Look, Rice was listed at about 6'2", 6'3". Came in to the Senior Bowl, looked to be closer to 6 foot, was able to measure at 6'1". So 6'1" is a good number. Not only that, Rashee Rice had a 41-inch vertical in the 95th percentile of people who have done that at the combine. A 128-inch broad jump in the 87th percentile in the combine. History. Also, loved his comments about blocking during his interview section of the combine. Rashee Rice had a fantastic combine, showed incredible explosiveness in his athletic testing. I love me some Rashee Rice. Now, there was no Joe Tippmann. There was no John Michael Schmitz. There was no Cody Mock. No Josh Weipler. No Josh Downs. No Cedric Tillman. I couldn't go with those guys. I was looking at Michael Wilson, Eli Ricks, Sean Tucker. It was an easy decision for me to get Rashee Rice. So you come into the Titans offense. You had Peter Skoronski up front, Darnell Washington at tight end, which helps blocking and receiving. You had Rashee Rice to go with Treylon Burks and probably a free agent addition. I mean, those are three fantastic picks that are going to be able to help the Titans from day one. I felt incredibly satisfied with those three picks. Now, it got a little dicey in the late rounds, but I felt I was still able to get some really good depth pieces and get some standouts from the combine as well on day 3. We're going to go into those picks in just a moment. Before we do, I want to thank you guys for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen every day. Now make your second listen the Locked On NFL Draft podcast. It's draft season, and Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez provide in-depth coverage of the NFL's biggest draft prospects. They also do deep dives into sleepers and hidden gems, basically guys that can change your NFL franchise who you haven't heard about so far. So find the Locked On NFL Draft podcast wherever you get your podcast, and it's on YouTube as well. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Titans fans, we are going to cap off this mock draft Monday edition of the Locked On Titans podcast with the day 3 selections. And there weren't a lot of clean fits that I found in the draft, but I thought I added some really nice players depth-wise to the trenches on day 3 that I'm very happy with and that had good combine performances as well. Just to recap everything for you guys. Pick number 11, Peter Skoronski. Locked in, starting offensive lineman, whether it be tackle, whether it be guard, maybe an all-pro guard for the next 10 years. You feel confident that you've helped the offensive line. If you leave pick 11 with Peter Skoronski, there aren't 32 first-round prospects in this draft. There's only about 15 or 16, according to some of the top pundits that cover the draft. Well, you know that when you have Peter Skoronski, you left with one of the top 15 players in the draft, for sure. You know that. So a safe pick and a smart pick for the Titans, especially if Paris Johnson Jr. is off the board, which he was at that time. So you get Peter Skoronski at pick number 11. Pick number 41, you get Darnell Washington, the tight end out of Georgia, 6'7", absolute monster, good blocker, still has all the athleticism that you want out of the tight end position. Again, only 4 tight ends or fullbacks in the last 10 years at the combine had a better short shuttle than Darnell Washington, and all of them are 10 pounds lighter. His short shuttle was the 3rd best at the combine of any position before the running backs ran when I made my notes. So incredibly impressive stuff from Darnell Washington at the combine. Add him to Peter Skoronski, and I know we're all worried about the offensive line, but you know what would help the Titans as well? If the tight ends block better too. So you get Darnell Washington to pair with Chigakonkwo, who's an undersized, fast tight end. What a beautiful pairing. Absolutely love that. Then pick number 3 for the Titans, pick number 72, we get Rashee Rice, who was incredibly explosive in his athletic testing at the combine, measured in at 6'1", fantastic prospect in a wide receiver class that is meh. So you get Skoronski, Darnell Washington, and Rashee Rice with your first 3 picks. We are helping out the offense in a major way, so I love that. But now we take a big break, and we go down to pick number 149. And honestly, I wanted some help for the defense. I thought about taking another interior offensive lineman, and there wasn't a lot there. So if I don't see a lot at any position of need, what I am going to do is I'm going to help the trenches, and I'm going to help the pass rush for the Titans. Danico Autry is no spring chicken. Okay, Danico Autry's getting older. If you could get a guy who could put his hand in the dirt as a defensive end and rush from the outside, or kick inside and rush from the interior as well, that would help you deal with Danico Autry as he ages. Not only that, but DeMarcus Walker may get a big contract now and may not be back. You need someone to replace him. I think a guy like Colby Wooden, the defensive lineman out of Auburn, can make a ton of sense for the Titans. Came in at 6'4", 273 pounds. So again, hand in the dirt as a defensive end. You could put him as a 5 technique, as a 3-4 defensive end. He could rush from the interior and 4 down packages. I think that would make a lot of sense. He had a 9.55 RAS score, which is a composite score with all of his athletic testing and his measurements together. He had a 1.71 10-yard split on his 40-yard dash. The dude can move, all right? And at that size, I mean, he looked fluid in the drills. Again, you groom him to take over for Danico Autry. You groom him and use him right away to replace DeMarcus Walker. I think that Colby Wooden, the defensive lineman from Auburn, could be a great addition for the Titans. Then you move to pick number 186, and I just can't believe this guy is still here. I love the fit. Come in, compete to be the starting center right away. And it's Juice Scruggs. I'm sorry, but you got a guy named Juice Scruggs. He's going to be good in the NFL. Okay? It's just what's going to happen. What an incredible football name. Juice Scruggs, interior offensive lineman from Penn State. I think he could come in, play center for the Titans. 6'3", 301 pounds. He had 33 and a quarter inch arms. He had 10 and a quarter inch hands. So look, he may not be the biggest guy of all time, but he's got a great build on him. If you look at the way that he's built, long arms, big hands. I mean, I think that Juice Scruggs could come in right away within the Titans system because he's an athletic guy who can move. I think that Scruggs could come in right away and compete for a starting spot with the Titans. And at minimum, is great depth on the interior. So through our first 5 picks, we added Skoronski to help the offensive line, Darnell Washington to help at tight end and help the offensive line, quite honestly, Rashee Rice at wide receiver, Colby Wooden at defensive line, Juice Scruggs at the interior of the offensive line. I love this class. And now finally, manifest. Pick number 230. I have the Titans taking Jake Moody, the kicker out of Michigan. Every single 7-round mock draft that I do from here until the draft, I am picking Jake Moody at 230 if he's available. The Titans cut Randy Bullock. They have Caleb Shudik. Bring in one of the best college kickers that we've seen in recent memory. Let him be the Titans kicker for the next decade. You get Ryan Stonehouse last year. You get Jake Moody this year. And your kicking units are solved for a decade. So I'm going to continue to try to manifest Jake Moody to the Titans. I'm going to do my best to make that real. And if he happens to go undrafted, the Titans got to do whatever they need to get him in as an undrafted free agent. Period. So, Peter Skoronski, Darnell Washington, Rashee Rice, Colby Wooden, Juice Scruggs, Jake Moody. I mean, I would be hype about it. I would be hype. So, with that in mind, that's going to do it for me today in our 7-round mock draft with some combine tidbits. No combine tidbit for Jake Moody. I don't need one. We're just drafting him. It's happening. All right. But as a reminder, tomorrow, Jeffrey Simmons scrubs the Titans from his social media. We hear some more buzz about the Titans trading up for a running back in the draft, or trading up for a quarterback, not running back. I'm looking at the chat. Mind getting all over the place. A quarterback in the draft. We're going to talk about all of that on tomorrow's show. That's going to do it for me today, though, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.